Right, let's test out the power steering system then. So I'm going to fill that up. I'm going to fill up the radiator as well, so it's bound to have leaked some. Fire it up and see what happens. What we're hoping for then is to get the pressure up in the system, so from the reservoir down to the pump, up to the pressure reducing valve here, and then should get a readout on here, and then I can under here. So under this cap nut is a screw which I can get this Allen key into, and by turning that I'm winding this threaded portion up and down, which in turn is sat on a spring. So the more I wind that in, the tighter the spring and the more pressure required to open the spring. So that's how we can control what comes in from here and goes out from here to the steering box here, and then the excess goes down here back on the return line. Let's see all the bubbles then. The vent has come up a tiny bit, so there might be an airlock somewhere in the system. So I'm going to try the steering wheel and see what happens. So keep an eye on the wheel. Well, there's definitely some power coming through, but it's like it's notchy, so that's probably air. Oops. So I'm not quite sure what, because I was in the cab at the time, but something dramatic happened there, and there's now hydraulic oil all over the shop. I just hope I haven't blown something in the actual steering box. Well, fire it up again and find out, I guess. Right, I saw straight away where the oil was coming out. It's just down there. That's very depressing, because that is the front of the steering box, by which I mean this is a bit of original Soviet equipment. Yeah. I've now got the situation that I was desperately trying to avoid by fitting all that rigmarole in the first place. And I've sent full pressure from the pump to the steering box and blown it up. So the front of that steering box, so where the steering column comes in to the steering box, which then feeds down to the front axle, that steering box has got the front panel on it, has got some kind of gasket over there, that's blown. Hopefully it's just that gasket. I can fix the gasket and be back and running. If not, oh god, what an idiot. Well, I've had a cup of tea. Actually, I had a whole pot of tea and lunch and a Kit Kat. I'm still not very jolly. I can't believe how stupid that was. How stupid I've been. Well, I can believe it. I was there. Anyway. Oh. There it is. Bugger. Right. It's not the end of the world. I think what happened was there's one bolt in here that was loose, and I think I'd loosened it because there was some kind of bracket on there, which I probably took the bracket off and didn't do the bolt up again. So yeah, more stupidity. But I suspect that's that one. As you can see here, we're looking at an O-ring that's ruptured. So unlike some weird oil seal that I was dreading finding, an O-ring should be replaceable quite easily, because I can just measure the groove here and order another one to suit. Whew. That's actually quite a relief. Something simple. Yeah, I can live with that. Right. Get the calipers out, measure that, and hopefully eBay shall provide. Right then, a few days has elapsed. Here's the old broken O-ring, and a new one's turned up in the post. I was a bit concerned it wouldn't fit. Thankfully it does. It's 90mm by 3 if you need, if you make the same cock up I did. But the O-rings go up in 0.5mm increments, and the O-ring's very slightly smaller than the channel that it sits in, because obviously once you tighten it up, once I put the bolts back in here and clamp this in, it's going to squidge that, so you've got to allow for that as well. And you can't completely measure this one because obviously it's squashed quite flat from 40 years of compression. Anyway, let's install it. The reason it blew is because here's the adjuster, so I can wind it in and out here, which pushes the spring tighter or looser inside of this housing, and I had it wound all the way out, which meant that it had the full pressure coming from the pump straight through the Soviet system. And then I went in the cab and I turned it lock to lock, trying to get the air out but obviously not appreciating the fact that it was under full pressure, and the inevitable happened. Thankfully it just cost me £5 something to replace the seal down there, and not anything more exotic in the actual box. Anyway, Mark's on his way down, and when he gets here I'll get him to sit in the cab and turn the steering wheel lock to lock, while I stay out here and keep an eye on this gauge, make sure it doesn't go above 70 by adjusting this adjuster. All will be well.
You sure you weren't using vegetable oil?
Well, it wouldn't matter, would it? It didn't matter what I was using because it was sprayed out all over the place anyway.
So what do you want me to do?
Sit in the cab and turn the steering wheel. Okay. And I shall shout instructions to you through the window.
Cool.
Right, if you can make sure it's in neutral first, I'll fire it up.
Window doesn't open.
Turn the handle.
Really hard?
The other way. Grab the thing and wiggle it.
Ah. Okay.
There we go. Cool. So yeah, a few more goes and all that air will be gone. So it's purging itself out, which is splendid.
So it self-bleeds then?
Yeah. So now that screw that I was adjusting, it's got a lock nut on it, which I'm doing now. And then there's a cap goes over the lock nut, and we're done. So what I was doing there is 70 bar is more or less 70 kilograms per square.
It could near as damn it.
Yeah. So that was, and that's the limit of the gauge as well, handily enough. So I just made sure that whatever you were doing, we didn't exceed that.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's it. So that's the lock nuts on now, the cap's on. We'll check the fluid level again next time we run it, but it should run now with power steering.
That's really good.
Oh.
Okay. Oh, handily. That sits on top of the concrete block then. What do I have to do?
What do you think?
Like that. Do the high five thing.